Well, that's a reduced forum of senior Israeli ministers. Generally, they're consulted on day-to-day issues of war and peace. But for something this magnitude, ratification, approval in the full cabinet is required. And that full cabinet is still meeting now. And that's unusual. As you can see behind me, it's dark. We're well into the Jewish Sabbath. Ordinarily, the Israeli civil service would be completely shut down. It's worth remembering a number of ministers in this government are religiously observant Jews. The fact they are meeting, the fact they are working over the Sabbath shows the urgency of the matter. It's literally a matter of life and death. And I think the push is, despite a degree of resistance from far-right members of the coalition, as you noted, the push is to get this deal confirmed, approved by that government body so it can get underway on Sunday.
Hey, Dan, one of the reasons we want to talk to you, when we've got a great team throughout Israel, we wanted to get an understanding of the mood on the ground in recent days as the details of this ceasefire have emerged. What can you tell us about what's happening on the ground in Jerusalem, what you're hearing from folks who are and have been affected by this?
I think I'd characterize it as a general sense of measured relief, but an onset of anticipated grief. Why is that? Because we're going to see a third of the hostages remaining in Gaza from that October 7th, 2023 attack by Hamas that began this war. A third of them are going to be coming out in the coming 6 weeks. The problem is no one knows for sure if all are alive. In fact, some are assumed to have died. Hamas has not been open or forthcoming about the conditions of all of the hostages. It's spoken about only a few, and at times it's actually given false information. At least one hostage said to have died, and then she proved to have actually survived, and she was extracted during a first truce in 2023. So what you have now is anticipation of hostages coming back. They've been held incommunicado for 15 months. No one knows for sure what their condition is, but they're assumed to be in very poor condition. In fact, the government, Israel's version of Social Security, has already announced that they will automatically be deemed to be 50% handicapped. That's for the sake of future government benefits as handicapped persons. That's before they've even been examined by doctors or psychologists. So those surviving hostages presumably will come back, and there will be much relief and much joy. It will be mixed by concern for their safety, for their condition. They won't be immediately reconciled or reunited, with their families while they're being inspected. And again, sadly, some of those hostages will come back in coffins, and no one knows for sure who they are. So yes, there is some relief. I think Israelis, like Palestinians in Gaza, which has been devastated, will be happy to see a reprieve from this fighting. The number of Israelis killed in this war on a per capita level is almost 4 times the number of US soldiers killed in Afghanistan and Iraq in all of the years of those conflicts. And we're talking about a conscript military in Israel. So the impact is felt pretty much in every home. This is a very serious conflict. It's still open-ended. No one's talking about peace with Hamas. There cannot be peace with Hamas. So at best, this will be an open-ended ceasefire. Time will tell if this first phase that we're now talking about 6 weeks will indeed unfurl into a longer, open-ended ceasefire that involves the return of all remaining hostages and the release of many hundreds of Palestinian prisoners and reconstruction of the Gaza Strip.
Dan, I'm wondering if there's any view on why this is all happening right ahead of Donald Trump coming into office. Is it that Hamas was concerned about a second Trump White House and what it would mean for them, understanding clearly the Trump allegiance that has been shown in the past to both Israel and to Prime Minister Netanyahu? Is that the concern? I'm just curious if there's any thought around that.
That's the prevalent theory here. Hamas has not openly confirmed that. However, I think there's no doubting that the re-election of Donald Trump, the sweeping and surprise and shock and impressive re-election of Donald Trump, has energized U.S. influence in the region. A lot of people are wondering what holds for the Middle East under a second Trump administration. And when this incoming president said, and I quote, "There'll be all hell to pay if the hostages don't come back by the time of his inauguration," that tends to focus minds across the region. So there's some indication that Hamas is taking him seriously. Perhaps more so the mediating countries, Qatar and Egypt. Keep in mind, Hamas doesn't talk to Israel. Israel doesn't talk to Hamas. Hamas is blacklisted by the United States and widely in the West as a terrorist group. Now, Qatar and Egypt are countries that really do care about maintaining good relationships with the United States, and they may be concerned that if they can't apply pressure on Hamas to deliver a deal, they may face the wrath of this administration. We've had a number of incoming figures of the administration talking about really a very, should we say, unforgiving approach to Hamas. Israel, I think, at least on a rhetorical level, believes that should it go to war again with Hamas, it will have unstinting support from this administration. The Biden administration was very supportive, but there were differences on tactics, there were differences on scheduling, there were differences over the number of Palestinian civilians killed and suffering in Gaza. And I don't think we would see those differences, at least not openly, with the Trump administration. So Hamas will be wondering if maybe this is the time to cut a deal, to win a reprieve, perhaps to work a short-term truce, parlay it into something longer term that will allow Hamas to survive, if not thrive, and its surviving members to really be part of the future Gaza Strip, though it's really unclear what a day after government there would look like, given that Israel has sworn to make sure that Hamas will not remain in power.
Well, that's exactly where I want to end things, just in the last minute that we have with you, Dan, is get an understanding from you about what that day one in Gaza looks like now that a lot of Hamas's infrastructure has been destroyed. We know that Hamas has successfully recruited other people to join the organization, but what is Gaza post this war?
Gaza is devastated in a way no one has seen before. Keep in mind, it wasn't a happy place before this war. There was widespread privation, there was widespread unemployment, there were ruins and rubble from previous wars that were still unattended, that still had to be rebuilt. But really now there's devastation there that, frankly, no one could have imagined previously. This was a game-changer war. I think the Israeli approach was that Hamas, in carrying out that attack on October 7th, in which 1,200 people were killed, some 250 taken captive, it really did change the rules. And basically, Israel came in and said, well, in that case, that was a game changer. We're going to change the rules ourselves. And the Israeli approach has been not just to try to recover those hostages through military pressure, the occasional operation. It's been to literally uproot Hamas. And uprooting Hamas means attending to the underground system there. That has caused lots and lots of damage in the Gaza Strip. The very question of rebuilding is going to be a huge question hanging over this.
Absolutely.
Time will tell. I don't think anyone has answers.